on a 2010-2015 Honda Civic with the 1.8L engine. U0131 is a communication code between the gauge control module and the EPS unit. In plain terms, the cluster side is not getting the expected communication from the electric power steering side. The vehicle may have steering-related warnings, gauge or warning light behavior, or other network symptoms, depending on what else is happening on the car. The possible fault areas are the ignition feed to the EPS unit, the No. B24 fuse circuit, FCAN wiring between the EPS unit and the gauge control module, connector condition, or the gauge control module itself. Before getting deep into U0131, if other loss of communication codes are present for the ECM or PCM, handle those first. And if the car has multiple network communication codes, do not chase this one in isolation. Work through the broader network diagnosis first. Start by proving whether U0131 is current or intermittent. Clear the DTCs with the HDS. Turn the ignition switch to lock, then back to on. Wait for at least 6 seconds, then check for DTCs again with the HDS. If U0131 comes right back, continue with the circuit checks. If U0131 does not return, treat it as an intermittent failure for now. The system is okay at this time, so focus on loose or poor connections instead of replacing parts. Next, check fuse No. B24 rated at 7.5A in the underdash fuse and relay box. If that fuse is okay, keep moving forward to the power feed check at the EPS control unit. If the fuse is not okay, replace the fuse. If it blows again, repair a short to ground in the No. B24 7.5 a fuse circuit before going any farther. Now check for an open or high resistance in the ignition feed to the EPS control unit. Turn the ignition switch to lock. Disconnect EPS control unit connector A, the 11P connector. Turn the ignition switch back to on. Measure voltage between terminal No. 9, the gray wire, at EPS control unit connector A and body ground. The test condition here is ignition on, EPS connector disconnected, on the IG1 VSA/ABS circuit. If you have battery voltage there, the feed is present and you move to the FCAN wiring check. If you do not have battery voltage, repair an open or high resistance in that wire. With the power feed checked, move to the communication lines. Turn the ignition switch to lock. Disconnect the gauge control module TAC32P connector. With EPS control unit connector still disconnected and the gauge control module TAC32P connector disconnected, check continuity on both FCAN wires. Check FCAN H between gauge control module connector No. 19, white wire, and EPS control unit connector No. 10, white wire. Then check FCAN L between gauge control module connector No. 20, red wire, and EPS control unit connector No. 11, red wire. If there is continuity, the diagnostic path calls for replacing the gauge control module TAC. If there is not continuity, you are looking for an open or poor connection in the FCAN wiring between the EPS control unit and the gauge control module TAC. After the repair, verify the repair and confirm the code stays gone. The key on this one is to stay in order. Confirm the code, check the 7.5 a fuse circuit, prove the EPS ignition feed, then prove the FCAN wiring before condemning a module. For more diagnostic training, visit Diagnostics.com.